Awesome. Thank you so much, Goldie, for joining us.
Thank you for
Uh,
having me here, Gaurav. Pleasure meeting you.
Very nice to meet you. I think that you provide a unique lens into storytelling because you've worked across so many screens and formats and seen the evolution both of the format itself but also our audiences. And before we get started into slightly more in-depth questions, maybe you can give us a sense of what does it mean to have moved from cinema to television to digital in terms of screens, and how has that affected your individual style of storytelling?
Wow, I mean, that's my entire career. But good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, IDS, for having me here. And yeah, so, I was born in this industry. My father was a filmmaker as well. And I have seen it change from my childhood, where, more traditionally making Hindi films, from your own money, from home, from, mortgaging jewelry to homes. So one has seen that, and then one then saw as a child, again, I saw the whole, VHS video revolution that came in. I think that stuck with me a little bit, because I saw my father suffer a lot, and a lot of filmmakers at that point really struggling to adapt to how do we fight this piracy menace, and then TV, But I, as a kid, always found it very, very interesting and found it more exciting because there were more mediums and more platforms to tell your stories. So it's really how you look at it. Finally, produced movies, directed them, then moved on to television uh, because culturally, as a company, also we believe in transformation, and it's very, very important in our line. Not only to keep on changing with the audience, because there's a whole new generation that comes up every 5 years, now every 2 years, that think differently and believe differently. And if you're not moving with the times and with the people, you will get left behind. And it's unfortunately happened to a lot of contemporaries who have come into the line even after me. So the only thing constant is change. I know it's a cliche, but that's the fact and that's the truth. And there are still formats that I'm waiting to explore. I haven't yet got my mind and capabilities going for it. For example, video gaming, storytelling in video gaming. That's something that I've always. I'm not a big gamer, so maybe that's why I've not been able to do that. But uh, you know, the point is to tell a story, and to if you're passionate about it, then it finds its screen, so to speak. Yes, the kind of stories to be told on a larger screen is different. I feel. For traditional linear television is different. OTT TV is different. And now we've just started audio stories. We've started this Rose Pod, another vertical of ours, which is which is talking about audio stories, which is very, very exciting and new. And we'll talk about it more as we move further. The kind of stories are different because the audiences and the experiences that you're providing them are different. For example, if you're doing a film for a big screen, that's a collective viewing, So there has to be an experience that, a whole bunch of people go together and enjoy it together and then can discuss. Linear television is something that is a lot to do with background. It's more habitual, habit found. It's like a habit. It's more invested into characters, and many a times for the housewives or the house helps, it goes on in the background. So constantly there's dadam, all those triple cuts that you'll see, and those flash zooms and crash zooms and all that stuff. It's just to draw your attention constantly, because it is the second option. You're not concentratedly watching that. You need to draw attention to yourself constantly. And now OTT content, which is again actually TV only, but it is, I think, evolved from a technology, which is digital technology, and also the advent of multi-screens, you know. So you can watch it, it's a more personal, intimate viewing, you know. So it's the second TV in the house, or it's your mobile phone. So it's just a personal screen for yourself, you know, while the other two have some sort of a community viewing aspect to it. So the stories can be far more personal, you know, the telling can be far more intimate, and you know, so that's how I see these three are very, very different from each other. Similar yet very different. And yeah, I mean, that's how I have grown to understand the medium better.
Very nice. So you've touched on the screens. My dad actually was an ad man, so I grew up with the 30-second story all my life. And it seems to have come a full circle because the highest level of attention now is been given to Reels, TikTok, and really, really short form. And I think that has changed the user expectation and profile of the stories they watch also. How have you seen that shape the way you think about storytelling, just based on changes in attention span?
So definitely, you're competing with you know, attention, because the patience of watching something has become less, and you need to gratify the audience constantly, or give an illusion of gratification is coming, it's around the corner. Hold, 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 hold. Just hang
Absolutely.
in there, you know. Definitely, it has, you know, put us on our toes as, you know, writers and producers and directors and, you know, showrunners, because you are competing with a very little, you know, span of attention. Uh, but you know, interestingly, it's a bit of a segue from what you're saying, but during the lockdown, just after lockdown, during COVID, there was a movie called Drishyam 2 that released, you know. And against everybody's expectations, it was a big blockbuster, you know. And I went to the cinema hall to watch it. And knowingly, unknowingly, the original and the Hindi version, the format of the storytelling was like a amazing extended episode on an OTT platform, you know. So it starts with a cold open, you know, formatted wise. If you just revisit Drishyam 2 in your head, you know, it starts with this whole cold open kind of a thing. It goes in a non-linear structure because you're constantly invested in it, that, okay, a traditional way of storytelling would be a cause and then effect. You know, a lot of OTT content and a lot of Korean content also has become effect, and then I'll show you the cause. You know, so I come and slap you. You know, I enter this room, I come and I spray bullets in everybody. Don't worry, I'm not going to shoot you guys. But you start the movie like this, or you start the episode like that, and you're like, what the hell just happened? You know, and now I've got you by your collar, and now I want you to do hear why I'm doing this and why this character came to this point. So this kind of evolution of narrative came from being competing with the shorter format, you know, with the reels and the, you know, YouTube content, you know. It emerged from there, you know.
That's very interesting. I think we used to be, still are, I guess, jealous of cinema being a captive medium. And so if you bought a ticket, likely you're going to sit through the film. But it's interesting that you say that even cinema is looking to learn from this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, when look at Pathan, it's so episodic. You know, look at Jawan, it's so episodic. Animal, these are all blockbusters. Gadar 2, these are your 5 blockbusters of the year last year. And they're all, if you just sit back and analyze them, they're all episodic in nature.
That's really fascinating. I mean, I know that from as streaming services, you're right that the first 30 seconds is the most valuable time for a consumer, and you could spend tens of crores on making a project. It's a 30-second decision on whether I continue or don't as a consumer. And so a lot of these tropes we use of cold opens and and excitement at the beginning. But I guess what you're saying is it's more than just grabbing them in the first 30 seconds. It's actually a good uh, progression of episode progression that works for users. So that's interesting in and of itself. Uh, does it give you license to tell stories that you weren't able to tell in the past? How do you see the digital medium unlocking perhaps different levels of creativity within yourself? And then for people that are entering, how would you guide them best?
Definitely, it gives you a chance to tell different stories. You can be much more targeted to a certain group. You can focus on a certain age group or target group. And the more you become focused, uh, the lesser people you're trying to please, the more likely that that content will break out and work. You know, it's quite it's a paradox in itself. So going more and more specific on OTT and also giving a kind of a I wouldn't say educational, but a kind of a new world. Educating them about a certain world. I mean, it sounds a little patronizing, but you know what I'm trying to say. Introduce them to a new world, like what happened with Scam 2,
Yeah, it's
or sorry,
fascinating.
Scam 1. They got to see the stock market, and so that's also a great investment. So they got to, so there are new areas that I, because it's a single screen, and it's for me individually. So if I'm interested in a certain world, and so apart from the character and the story, also the world matters a lot on OTT.
No, sure. I think you made a good example in Scam. I think the important thing when you're creating a new world is not to talk down to your user. And I think that effectively in terms of bringing them on board in terms of how the stock market operates, rather than either making the assumption that they already knew it or sounding patronizing. So I think that balance is really important to get audiences invested in a new world. I'm going to take a leaf out of the previous session, my ex-boss, by the way, for 11 years, Anupam, and switch a little bit to the subject he was talking about, which is AI, and to get your take on what parts of this script to screen process do you think are ripe for becoming AI enabled? I think the journey is a long one. Most people don't understand how long that takes. But there are possibly some parts of it where you think that AI is better suited to participate. Tell me your thoughts on that.
So the two, three things, about AI, as I've stumbling through it, trying to work with it also. Uh, Definitely, it helps you in research. You know, so
Sure.
if you're writing about a certain thing, rather than first it was going to the libraries or collecting newspaper articles, then it was just going online and meeting people and stuff like that. Now it's just machine learning and throwing in those words and prompts and them giving you information. So research becomes very research about what is already existing becomes far more easy. So it enables the process that way. But overall, I feel that we have no choice but to embrace AI. Um, but with AI being there for narratives and storytelling, or it actually focuses more on people becoming more and more individualistic now and becoming far more creative, and that's how you will survive, and make a impression or connect with the audience, because AI can only tell you about what's already done, right? So far, you know. But what's going to be done, that comes from the human mind. AI came from the human mind. You know,
Absolutely.
so it becomes more. It will push people to become far more creative and original, actually, because now that everybody's got the same information, Now how do you use the AI? That becomes your individuality. And B, how do you think beyond this now, which we are capable of? So currently, then, I don't propagate it for actually writing a scene or a story, because it takes away the whole human aspect of it. Because human beings are filled with contradictions, and stories come from contradictions and conflicts. But an AI prompt, I mean, how will it decipher, internal conflict is something to be seen and understood still. So those are highly individualistic qualities of a human mind, which I don't think will get ever affected by AI.
No, I agree with you. I think that as a co-pilot, it could possibly help in a variety of areas, but the reality is it is not experiencing life. It is only simulating that. And I think there's a line of thought, and I talked to a lot of other filmmakers as well, that films are a lot about culture, and culture keeps changing. And like you said, it's a good lens into the past, but it may not be able to take us where culture is taking us. And so that I think is as much a responsibility as filmmakers to be ahead of the curve on culture, as well as then to resonate with what our culture is. So I guess you guys are looking at that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, see, AI is going to sooner than later take over a lot of the physical aspect of it, the shooting aspect of it.
Sure.
The A lot of the actors' work will become limited, you know. Uh, but what it can't take away is the writer, is the director, so those are things which where it's very highly individualistic. Those areas still will still be protected and will still move forward. But yes, it will give rise to newer professions. So traditionally, what an actor is supposed to be will probably change. Traditionally, what a DOP is supposed to be will change. Prompt engineering is a big thing. It will only become bigger and bigger. So it will evolve. It will evolve into new professions and new versions of what we have today.
So I'll talk about the spectrum. I think things like B-roll footage, for example, that industry is going to get disrupted because I think you can create the exact visual that's in your mind's eye. And while it hasn't happened as yet, there's every likelihood that will possibly have to evolve. But the cruelty also of taking a shot is that once it's taken and you're in editing, unless you do, patch shoots and the like, you're stuck with the footage you have. But actually, AI can correct some of that. Your lead talent is not looking directly into the camera, but you can get them to do that. So there's a lot more power it gives you as the storyteller that's actually influencing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was telling you, it's a tool. Like I was telling you about the audio stories that we're doing now in
Sure.
Rosepod, and while we're streaming on over 30 audio streaming platforms now, but we are also doing AI generated visuals for YouTube with those synced into these audio stories, and that audiences are watching it on YouTube. It's still just growing. We've just started. We've just taken out about 10, 15 titles, about 80 episodes or so in totality. And, so those kind of things are happening, and people are watching it. Yes, definitely. Like I said, it will just become a new form of what it is today, And see, it happened in the music industry, right? When my dad used to record music, we used to go to the film center in Tardeo, and there was a huge music hall, and the entire orchestra used to come, and everybody used to do everything simultaneously, and used to record the song in one take, you know. But slowly, you just had to call for one violinist and sample that sound and put that in. you know. And nobody thought about that trumpet player or that violinist at that point, you know. So those were professions that started going, started becoming obsolete. But new professions started coming out of, you know, people who could sample it, and, you know, music producers, and, you know, other such tech-related. So it's already happened in the music industry many, many years ago, you know, as I see it. It's just happening now to the big boys, the writers and the filmmakers now. So it's pinching everybody much more. But we have to embrace technology, and, you know, definitely AI needs to be regulated, you know, by humans and our minds. I'm for regulations regarding AI, but other than that, it's a new technology, and we should embrace it, and, you know, learn how to work with it rather than constantly fear it. You know.
No, sure. I think IP protection, all of that is still some time away, but I think everyone's thinking about it, working on it. It needs to get solved. Can we explore a little bit more about the audio stories that you were talking about? It's fascinating. Obviously, storytelling started with audio stories, but I'm interested to know what is the use case. What kind of person prefers to hear an audio story versus this audiovisual assault which we have continuously, and how are you seeing that? Talk to us about something that's surprising,
So,
interesting, anything in that.
so audio stories and podcasts, you know, audio podcasts,
Yep.
uh, audio first podcasts, because now they have an offset of video also on YouTube and stuff like that. But my understanding is that in India, audio is currently being consumed by people who are consuming it out of choice, and people out of need. So when I say out of choice, I mean by the slightly bit more elite audience that prefers to hear self-help or a audiobook, or, you know, some tech-related news, or, you know, some interviews. Um, that's out of, you know, they want to, you know. But there is this whole larger Bharat, you know, which cannot really afford video streaming, you know, whose data pack runs out by 12 in the afternoon, you know, who buys daily data, you know. And you should know this, because as tech people, you guys know this. Um, they also want entertainment, you know. They are sitting in the shop and not only wanting to listen to music, now they can have the option of hearing stories also,
Sure.
you know. So obviously audio streaming uses lesser data. Or, you know, maybe you know, a tea picker in Darjeeling is, you know, playing it on our phone and plucking tea, you know, and hearing a nice story, you know, while doing that, you know. So we are really targeting these two extreme audiences, you know. We've started off with more Hindi, you know, heartland stories, and mythological, historicals, love stories, but centered around B towns and C towns. You know, and now we are building up a slate of very high-end, evolved listening, where we do non-fiction, you know, something around books, something around, you know, style and fashion, and semi-political with a lighter touch to it, you know, or luxury, you know, tech. These areas, uh, numerology, astrology. You know, these are all these areas that we are, you know, tapping into. Poetry, Urdu poetry. You know, slightly bit more evolved listening. You know, that slate is being readied just now. So that's how I see the audio industry evolving, audio storytelling, or, you know, podcasts, or how, whatever you want to call it, you know. And of course, there's an offshoot of it on our YouTube channel as well. And moving forward, you know, converting them into Tamil, Telugu. These will be our first two southern languages. Already started doing that with the audio stories. Two, three stories we've already dubbed into regional languages. But very, very exciting. You know, a lot of talent out there, you know, who are doing stories. And it does give you some data for me to come to you and pitch to you and saying, listen, this story of mine has worked on audio. You know, these are the listeners. Week on week, this is what's happening. Why don't we turn it into a video format? You know, and then that's when you also convert it into an OTT show or a television show, however we want to do it, But that's the only way I can, as a production house in this, market of all you big boys, try and hold on to some IP, try and create some of my own IP, at a much more reasonable cost, and then, and then build from there on. But it's very, very exciting. I'm very, very excited about it. It's my passion at the moment.
You mentioned moving into Tamil, Telugu, and we've had success with K-dramas, Turkish, and other formats. Do these translate well in terms of people's willingness, or is there a cultural element that's missing when you take these stories to different parts of the country?
So, Rose Audiovisuals is the first company in India to have officially adapted a Korean show. We made 2 seasons of the show called Doranga for Z5.
Yep.
Hugely successful, did great numbers for them. But the original was a Korean show called Flower of Evil.
Okay.
So we got in touch with Studio Dragon and CJ, and we optioned the rights. And there was a new content head in Z. Nimisha had just joined in. And it was probably one of our first few pitches. I just got these rights, and I said, you know what, I've just got this. I love the story. I want to turn it into Hindi. And there was no question. She said, it's terrific. Let's just do it. And so definitely Korean content translates very well to Indian Hindi content because of the family system and the upbringing. And culturally, Asians are quite similar, all over. So that part has worked. I have done it myself, so it has worked for me. Japanese to Hindi is a little bit more difficult. Because of this, I've got tons of Japanese content also that they have pitched us. But their lives are too, they have reached too much of an evolved state. They are dealing with loneliness and all that kind of stuff, which is not a problem in India. So their stories are different. But the Koreans, the Indonesians, Malaysians, their stories are far more Vietnam. These stories from all over here are closer to the Indian ethos. Turning Hindi stories into Tamil and Telugu. So I think sometimes, that it's simpler to adapt a Korean show to Hindi than a Hindi show to Tamil. We are venturing out into Tamil and Telugu. We have done 2 tie-ups over there now, and we are now pitching to platforms content over there. Telugu is still closer to Hindi, but Tamil is a different world, and it is not that simple to adapt a Hindi or even a Telugu show into Tamil. Kannada is still simpler, but that's a different world altogether and a different, mindset. So yeah, to answer your question, it isn't that simple to adapt from Hindi to Tamil, but it's simpler to adapt from Hindi to Telugu.
I want to ask one final question, which is something I'm grappling with and would love to take your take on it. As filmmakers and storytellers, so far you've been able to control the frame. You control the way the audience experiences the content that you put in. As we move towards this immersive technologies, where the world is all around the audience, and they're actually free to explore that world in some fashion, even though you're telling a story, you lose a bit of control. And there are some ways to get that control back. But is that something you've thought about? Because it's something that's on my mind right now.
I've thought about it since many, many years. So 20, 25 years ago, when I was just starting off. I always wanted to do an interactive movie, where you get to choose your story moving forward. I think Black Mirror did it and stuff like that. So there is a lot of interactive stuff that's happening. But the control will still remain with the filmmaker or the storyteller or the tech person, because you get to choose the options that I'm giving you, right?
Sure.
So those are my control things. Your understanding about control of telling a story is really up to you, you know. So if yeah, there are three doors, but I've given you those three doors. Which door you enter, you will enter into a world that I have only created so far. And yeah, but it's exciting, you know, interactive, augmented reality stuff. You know, it's still very far away, but you know, one would love to explore that. You know, and narratives in video games and augmented reality and you know virtual reality. It's all very exciting, and again, storytelling will change a little bit more. You know, once you get into that, I don't know how far it is. I don't know how close it is. The technology. I'm not a tech person, so I wouldn't know that. You would probably know that. I've just seen a few conferences and seminars about it, but there's some really fascinating stuff. I was just seeing something on social media where the 5D screen, where the entire ceiling catches fire, and people are panicking because it's actually projection. But great, yeah, great, very very immersive and you know fantastic. But at the end of the day, it has to emotionally connect with you to you know get immersed. You know, so that will never change.
So as Goldie says, you have the illusion of control, but the final word is his in that sense. And so you're welcome into his world, but it's his world.